Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. Welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, where we shine a spotlight on incredible talent you might not have heard of yet. I'm Rick Anthony, and I'm thrilled to go north of the border for an award-winning singer-songwriter who hails from Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. He's known for his unique Troubadour Country style. We're going to find out what that's all about. He's captivated audiences in Canada and beyond, and he has the magic of turning stories into songs. Will you please welcome my friend, Chase Stevens. Chase, as I say, good day, eh?
How you doing, Rick?
Fine. I had to do that. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's how Americans look at Canadians. Good day, thanks to Bob and Doug. Let's start with your humble beginnings. What was the path to becoming a musician and finally your aha moment?
Well, I was doing the pub scene where you do a lot of covers, and I did that for years, and then I got out of it and really kind of stopped doing music altogether. And I got into the art business. I was a fine art dealer for many years. And then I started to get curious about the whole songwriting scene down in Nashville and decided to take a trip down there and just kind of explore that a little bit. And that really kind of lit the fuse to get back into it again without doing the pubs and just really focus on the songwriting and then eventually the recording aspect of it as well.
Now, Chase, your style is called Troubadour Country. Can you unpack that and tell us what Troubadour Country is defined as?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a term that I actually came up with. And where that came from was my roots and my beginning were in the whole singer-songwriter genre. You know, people like Jim Croce, Cat Stevens, Harry Chapin, and so on. I love that kind of music. And that's kind of music that I started out playing. And then when I started to gravitate over toward country, I found that my writing style was still, incorporating a lot of those sort of singer-songwriter elements to it. It wasn't the traditional country that a lot of people are writing, and that's where it just kind of fused the two of them together.
And the new country scene, I have a hard time trying to understand that. I really and truly like the traditional country, and when I think of Troubadour Country, I think of George Strait as far as the one of the original country troubadours.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And what I'm hearing nowadays, I don't mean to offend any country listeners and such, but I have a hard time distinguishing from one male artist to the next, and the same thing in the female genre. They all kind of sound the same. They all seem to be playing the same kind of music. And out of Nashville, you've got that Music Row music making machine type thing where, it's something coming out of like the Play-Doh Fun Factory type thing. Do you agree to that?
I do. 100% I agree with that. And I think it is a reflection on how the music industry has changed. It's one of the things you hear down in Nashville, that everyone's trying to write a number one hit song because there's no beat cuts anymore. There's no album cuts that you can still make money on. So unless you're writing a number one hit radio song, it's very hard to make money as a songwriter. So everyone is just kind of writing to a particular formula. And you hear that over and over in Nashville, getting length of song and getting to the chorus and bridge and all those sort of things that are really kind of driving and shaping a lot of what we're hearing on mainstream radio. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff that's not on mainstream radio that deviates from that.
I understand.
Yeah,
it's sad but true. But I can't change it. I don't think you can either. But maybe you can with Troubadour Country. That might be might be the new genre as far as that we'll have to be adding in our iPods or whatever. What genre? It's Troubadour Country. Yeah.
I like it.
Chase Stevens, the originator of it. Now, in your press release, you mentioned the magic of turning a simple guitar track into a polished recording in the studio. Can you take us through that process?
Yeah, and that is my absolute favorite aspect of the whole music industry. You sit on your couch, where I am right now, and you pick away and you write this little song with just acoustic guitar and voice. And then I go down to, I do almost all of my recording down in Nashville, and you put it in the hands of these world-class musicians down there, and you just see this song that takes on its whole new identity and life that you could never envision it. Anytime you walk into a studio, you don't know exactly what you're going to walk out with.
Right.
And it just never ceases to amaze me of what these guys do, that their musicianship, and not just musicianship, but it's their intuition and their ability to interpret a song, which I just find unbelievable.
What were some of the people you've worked with in Nashville?
A guy named Troy Lancaster has played electric guitar on most of the things that I've recorded, and he's played on over 50 number one hit songs.
That's
yeah,
what I mean.
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You go to their house and you see 50 gold records there. Where'd you get? Oh, you played with them. You played with them. You played with them. It's amazing how that all happens. And let's talk about your next gold record. We're going to talk about As Good as It Gets. It's the latest single, and it features some A-list musicians from Nashville. Can you tell us who's helping out on this one and the backstory on the song?
There's a guy named Scotty Noble who played keyboards on that, and he's been Faith Hill and Tim McGraw's. Billy Noble, sorry. He's been their keyboard player for many, many years. And I've had the good fortune to work with him on a number of tunes as well. And he's just, again, one of those guys that can just, you ask him for a certain thing and he just is able to do it in a way that is just, off the charts.
I love that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Backstory on the song, Chase. What's the thought behind you wrote this song?
We all go through, your ups and downs in life, and you all get kind of bummed out at some point. And it's almost, life's a little bit of a roller coaster, right? And I think sometimes we can forget a little bit about how good it is, and you just got to get out there and you've got to try to keep a positive attitude, and do the things you love to do, and just make it as good as it gets. So it's really about that song that kind of started out as a kick in the ass to myself, really. And then it kind of morphed into kind of this message for everybody. It's like, hey, we all have to remember that. We got one go at this thing. Let's just make it as good as it gets and live life to the fullest, basically.
All right. Well, this is the best you're going to get of this song. I love it. As Good as It Gets from today's podcast guest, Chase Stevens.
A lot of stuff I don't understand. Sometimes things don't go as planned. I always thought that was just part of life. It's alright. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You get what you get, you can't always choose. But in the end you hope that it'll be enough to be happy. And you dance around the sun 100 times while the moon and stars shine. But it is what it is and it ain't what it ain't. I'm not a sinner, but I sure am no saint. I've been on both sides of up and down, good and bad, been lost, and I've been found. Oh, I know it's sometimes easy to forget that life is good. Make it as good as it gets. You never miss what you never had. Don't waste time looking back. That water under the bridge is as good as gone, whether right or wrong. We all get a little rain every now and then, but the sun will shine again. 'Cause it is what it is and it ain't what it ain't. I'm not a sinner, but I sure am no saint. I've been on both sides of up and down, good and bad and lost, and I've been found. Oh, I know it's sometimes easy to forget that life is good. Make it as good as it gets. I know that in life nothing is guaranteed, but we do the best we can. Whatever will be, will be. Gotta roll on down the highway, blazing a trail of memories. 'Cause it is what it is and it ain't what it ain't. I'm not a sinner, but I sure am no saint. I've been on both sides of up and down, good and bad, been lost, and I've been found. Oh, I know it's sometimes easy is good. Make it as good as it gets.
New music from Chase Stevens. It's called As Good As It Gets. We'll have more conversations and more music from Chase in just a few. But first, I want to say thanks so much for tuning into the Someone You Should Know podcast. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. And I also want to thank our friends at Buzzsprout. They're the service that shares us to all the streaming platforms, currently heard in over 2,700 cities in 102 countries around the world. We want to salute a couple of new ones. We've got Roanoke, Alabama, Cypress, California, Buckinghamshire in the UK, and your hometown. This one's been around for a while, Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, which is just outside of Toronto, right, Chase?
It is, just west of Toronto. Yeah.
Someone You Should Know podcast, heard wherever quality streaming audio is available. We're talking to my guest this time, Chase Stevens. And being from Canada, I got to ask you, how is the Canadian country scene?
It's amazing. It has exploded. I would say in the last 10 years or so, it has just really, really taken off. Seeing a lot more songwriter nights that are organized, and there's a great sense of camaraderie up here as well. The talent pool is phenomenal. I wish radio could keep up with the amount of talent that we have in this country. So it's fantastic. A little different than the American scene, flavor-wise. We kind of have a little bit of our own brand, if you will, of it. But yeah, it's doing great.
Now, a lot of listeners might not know this, but above the border in Canada, they have what's called CanCon, which is Canadian content, a rule that basically is supposed to help Canadian artists get more airplay. Is that rule still in place, and what is the percentage nowadays?
It is still in place, and from what I understand, it's still 30%.
Okay.
I have mixed feelings on it. I think a lot of stations use that or sort of circumvent the intent of that rule by playing a lot of old songs and not really supporting new and especially indie artists. And that's really what they should be doing is playing a lot more indie artists, playing a lot more new stuff instead of going back and playing 25-year-old Shania Twain. So no offense to Shania Twain, but it'd be nice to have more new artists get bigger boosts from some of these radio stations.
I totally agree, and I think I'm calling you out, programmers. Corporate programmers need to give some of the newer folks a chance. Okay, that's
100%.
That's just Uncle Rick talking here. Right? This is 44 years of radio talking here. Okay, now your songs have won awards not only in Canada but internationally, and getting that recognition is got to be a boost to your career. It hasn't changed your creative process, has it?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's always great to get those sort of recognitions, and they're definitely feel good moments. But you get it, and then you move on to the next song and just kind of keep plugging away, trying to write a better song than you have ever written before. That's always the goal. Every time you write a song, you want it to be the best one you've ever written.
Awesome. And I'd like to play one of those songs that was a hit for you. Another little roadside kiss. Tell us about how that kind of rose to fame and how it resonates with your listeners.
Well, it is one of those songs that, I'm a real summer guy. I love summer. I'm not a big winter fan. And I wrote that song during COVID in the middle of winter. And just when you're just kind of getting anxious of, to get back out there on the road again. And part of it as well is that when you are out on the road, it's not always about the destination. It's that, that's sort of cliche, but it's the journey. So when you are out on those nice summer drives, take some time and just stop and, enjoy the moment, taking the scenery and, enjoy that another little roadside kiss kind of thing.
All right. We're going to play that song right now. Another little roadside kiss from today's podcast against Chase Stevens.
Perfect morning shining through the towering pines. Gypsy wind is blowing, that sweet smell of summer across the big old blue sky. There's a little back road that's waiting for you and I. Let's get these wheels moving forward, windows down, music cranked up loud. Winding through the heart of nowhere, skipping every town. I'm gonna stop every chance there is. time, I don't care when we get back. We'll drive into the night. You wanna chase the sunset? You know I'd be good with that. As long as I have you beside me, I'll love the view. Let's get these wheels moving forward, windows down, music cranked up loud. Winding through the heart of nowhere, skipping every town. You know I'm gonna stop every chance there is for another little roadside kiss. Slip on a pair of sneakers and come with me. These are the days we live for, let's make it a memory. Let's get these wheels moving forward, windows down, music cranked up loud. Winding through the heart of nowhere, skipping every town. But you know I'm gonna stop every chance there is for another little roadside kiss. Yeah, you know I'm gonna stop every chance there is for another little sunlit roadside kiss.
That's another little roadside kiss from Chase Stevens. Chase joins me today on the podcast. That song is from your album called Trespassing Castles. What is the story on that album? How are we with that? Are we getting ready to finish that up, or what's going on?
Trespassing Castle is done. It's out there. Now working on the next one now. So I'm working on the new album that hoping to finish later on this year. That I think is going to be called Time.
Time. So, love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, he did take more time. Like you were saying there, when you're talking about another little roadside kiss, you need to stop and smell the roses alongside the road and find that special someone and just maybe give them a little kiss along the roadside there.
That's right.
Chase, my next feature is probably one of my favorites. It is called Tales from the Road. Those are those road stories where things didn't go quite as planned. You've played out quite a few times, a lot of load-ins and load-outs and such. Mm-hmm. Anything come to mind as one of those moments where things didn't go quite as planned?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind is there's a gentleman down in Nashville named Terry Say and Wanda, who unfortunately just passed away last year. But these folks host house concerts. And every October they do one that they call the Canadian Roundup that features only Canadian songwriters. And we've had some amazing nights down there with some great Canadian songwriters. And I drove down with a buddy of mine, David McLaughlin, who's a songwriter as well. And we got to the border. And of course, one of the things, when you're crossing a border, you don't want to tell them you're just going down there, to see friends. You don't want to tell them you're actually playing a gig of any kind, even though it wasn't a paid gig. It was just like a fundraiser for Nashville Songwriting Association. But David had mentioned that we were doing that concert, so they wanted to pull it up on the internet. They looked at the poster. Terry happened to have used my photo on the poster. So the guy said, "Well, it looks like you're one of the headliners there. How much are you getting paid for this gig?" And I had to convince him that this is a freebie. We're just going down there to support this whole cause kind of thing. And well, they kept us there for an hour interrogating us, and they went through the car and they ripped everything apart, like even toiletries. They just emptied. I had a little vial with some vitamin C and Cold FX kind of thing, and they just emptied everything. And it's just that's not a great experience.
No, I understand that. I've had several times. As a matter of fact, they're Canadian artists too. Band Chilliwack, if you remember them from the 80s and such. One of the band members did not have one of his visas or something or other. And they wouldn't let him come in. They just would not let him come into the country. He got all the way down to San Diego, but he could not actually get. It was kind of like the movie Terminal, with Tom Hanks. But thank you for your Tales from the Road. I'm glad it got you through and you got a chance to perform. And and such. But yeah, that has got to be a little frustrating going across the border. Thanks for your tales from the road. I want to ask you another thing. You started talking about these songwriter nights. Was that at the Moonshine Cafe by chance?
Yeah. I've been hosting those for 6 or 7 years now.
Mm-hmm. I like that. You're doing it. What it is, folks. It's like a Nashville style songwriters night. It's at the Moonshine Cafe. Where's the Moonshine Cafe at?
Well, the Moonshine is just in the process of relocating. They closed down their current location, or long-time location, I guess it was the end of November. So they're moving pretty close to where they were. So hopefully they'll open up again in the not too far off future. We can get back and doing those things again. And there's other clubs that are coming on board with that too. That's one of the great things that we're all finding here, is that other clubs are seeing the success of these songwriter nights in other venues and bringing them into their establishments as well. And of course, that gives more songwriters an opportunity to play and exposure and so on. So it is definitely a growing area of the scene up here.
I had a dear friend of mine, or still have a dear friend of mine, but during COVID, what they were doing is they had these singer-songwriter nights in Nashville, and they would actually do it live. And it was only one person, was just the engineer and the act performing, and they had their masks on up until the time came to sing and such. But it was wonderful. And during COVID, when you couldn't do anything, it was always great to see that happening, that these individuals are still working on perfecting their craft during a lockdown.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, a lot of those sort of things happened up here as well. Yeah, it was great.
Awesome, very good. Let's talk about social media. How can people stay in touch with what's going on with your career, and when new music comes out, and when you're touring?
Mm-hmm. Certainly, they can go to my website, which is chasestevensmusic.com. And they can also find me on Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome. Very good. What we'll do is we'll include those down in the show notes. So if by chance you're in the car right now and you really like the songs that you heard, which I'm sure you did, you want to follow this man's career, just go down to the show notes. All you have to do is, if you happen to be on like Spotify or Apple Music or whatever it might be, just go ahead and scroll down to the notes of the podcast and just, click on those links, and they'll take you exactly where you need to go. All right. What's next for you for 2025, Chase? It's going to be a big year ahead of us. What's going on?
Some really exciting things are going on. Doing a lot of writing these days. Want to get back in the studio in March or in the spring, and continue working on the next album. And also in the very early stages of putting together a band. So I'm really excited about doing that. Yeah, get out there and play some different venues and hopefully get in and do some festivals and so on. So a lot of cool things like that going on.
Very good. So we need to definitely be following the social medias to find out exactly where you're playing. Got any dates planned in the States?
I don't in the States yet, but when I have dates to get down to Nashville to record, I'm certainly going to be setting up some nights down there and play. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Want to get, the Commodore is a great songwriting room down there, and the listening room, and a number of places like that. So
awesome, yeah. Very good. Well, my guest this time, Chase Stevens. I hope you get a chance to check him out if he comes to a city near you, especially if you have to be in Nashville, or if you're touring north of the border up in Toronto or in that particular area. Look for him. Make sure you check out his socials. And Chase, I thanks so much for being a guest on this Someone You Should Know podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Great chatting with you, Rick.
And go Maple Leafs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And same with Chicago, too. I know they're struggling a little bit right now, but they've got some good players on that team.
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for listening to this episode of Someone You Should Know. Now, if you're an aspiring musician or an established musician that's looking for a little exposure, I invite you to drop us a line at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. That's someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I invite you to tell a friend about the Someone You Should Know podcast. I thank you for tuning in this time, and I invite you to check us out next time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, because you never know who's going to show up. Until next time, remember, God loves you, and so do I.